Okay. Thank you. I should be drinking coffee and not herb tea so I can stay awake. It's Tuesday, so it must be Portland. Anyway, it's about my 6th visit. Once I went out to the Oakland airport, said I'm ready to go to Portland, and they said you can't, there's an ice storm up there. And Reverend Toll had arranged for me to speak here and at his Presbyterian church or Episcopal church in Milwaukee and so on, and I went back to Berkeley for the night. The next time I was to come up here, I got a plane from Boston to San Francisco. It arrived at noon. I had 3 hours to wait for the flight to Portland. That looked pretty easy. Sitting there, and they announced, United Airlines, that the flight was late coming from San Jose, and at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, at 7 o'clock I was supposed to be speaking right here. The woman next to me said, "Why are you going up to Portland?" I said, "Well, I'm speaking at a Presbyterian church right now." So 10 o'clock came, and United flew us to Las Vegas. My baggage had gone on to Portland. They put us up overnight in some dowdy old hotel that's seen its better days, full of slot machines on the ground floor, and you could hardly get through the slot machines to the registration desk. And then the next morning, some other airline flew us to Portland, and I missed the talk here and the talk the next morning in Milwaukee, but did make the Oregonian with about 5 other good folks, including Reverend Dick Toll. And I'm particularly appreciative of the work Jennifer's done on very short notice, remarkable, and the people she's working with here, and her long-suffering spouse John, Reverend Moiso, Dick Toll, who put me in touch with Jennifer. She hasn't forgiven him yet. He's over in Jerusalem now, and Elaine Kelly, who works with Friends of Sabile, and the Nelsons and others who've been very helpful, the Hansons and so forth, taking me, rushing me around town. And I never get to see the Rose Garden when I'm in Portland, so really need to come for a day extra of Powell's books. Anyway, I'm an American Jewish human rights activist, and at some point I'll ask Diane, who's been kind enough to pass some material around, and I didn't bring many copies of this, but this is to prove to you that I do exist. It's a story in the Boston Globe recently. I want to touch on 5 things: the question of values approaching this issue, something about the history, the current situation, including terrorism and human rights, the U.S. policy in the area, and then what's to be done, which is the key question. These are all sort of lectures in and of themselves, and I'll try to do this in 20 or 25 minutes without losing you and without stumbling over my words, because really one needs to have as much time or more for discussion than for one more person speechifying. My wife refuses to go to hear anybody talk for more than 15 minutes, and I think she's smart. Unless it's a Dan Berrigan or somebody who keeps you awake and on your feet. And Dennis Kucinich, whom I heard, who's not only very good on this issue, but a lot of issues, is a very dynamic speaker and someone who has a very holistic approach, speaking of politicians who won't get to the White House. So, Search for Justice and Equality in Palestine, Israel is a human rights peace group that believes and states on our letterhead that justice for Palestinian Arabs and security for Israeli Jews are interdependent and not mutually exclusive. In other words, the two peoples will swim together or sink together, hang together or hang separately, as Ben Franklin put it, or more eloquently, as Martin Luther King Jr. put it, we have to learn to live together as brothers and sisters or we'll perish together as fools. And it seems to me that if you believe in God as a Jew or Christian or Muslim or what have you, or you're thinking about whether you believe in God like Unitarians, all people are supposed to be equal in God's eyes, and under the law and legal systems, they're supposed to be treated equally. So Jews and Palestinians, Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs should be treated equally under the law and seen as equal human beings. So it shouldn't be seen as a zero-sum game, not that there's going to be a winner or loser. They're both going to lose or they're both going to win. And that seems to be an approach that we need to take, and everybody needs to be encouraged to take that approach. I think we need to say to supporters of Israel and Israeli policy in the Jewish community and in the Christian coalition, fundamentalist community and so forth, politicians, that we need to support Palestinian rights for 2 reasons. First, that they're an end in and of themselves. They're just as important, their rights, as the rights of Israeli Jews. No more so, no less so. Okay? Because if you think Israeli Jews are more important than Palestinians, you're an anti-Palestinian or Israeli chauvinist. And if you think Palestinians are more important than Jews, you're a Palestinian chauvinist or an anti-Semite or what have you. Second thing is that if we believe that this is not a zero-sum game, that they're both going to win or lose together, that the rights of Palestinians are a means to the end of security and the rights of Israeli Jews. So even if you don't care about Palestinians, you should be concerned about their rights, because that's the means to the end of securing rights for Israeli Jews, whether it's in one state or 2 states or 2.5 states or what have you. My wife says don't tell more than one Jewish joke, and I'll just tell one. But there's a story of Rabbi Cohen and his good friend Father Murphy. So they were good friends. Rabbi Cohen's on his deathbed. Father Murphy rushes in and says, Josh, this is terrible. And Josh Cohen says, Father Murphy, Sean, please convert me to Catholicism. And the priest says, I don't want to do that. That's crazy. You've been such a good, devout Jew all your life. I insist. He converts him to Catholicism. The priest exits. David Cohen rushes in. The son says, Dad, you've been a good Jew all your life. What are you doing? Converting to Catholicism on your deathbed. So the father says to his son, he says, look, if I have to go, it's better it's one of them than one of us. And I think this is the problem among Christians, Jews, and Muslims, among Palestinians, Israelis, and Americans, is it's, one of us is more important than 5 of them. And this ethnocentrism and exclusivism rather than inclusivism among the Abrahamic religions, the chauvinism among nationalisms, this we have to struggle to overcome, sometimes within ourselves, but certainly within the policies of the respective governments that are involved. And George Orwell said that the nationalist not only does not disapprove of the crimes of his own state, but has remarkable capacity for not even hearing of them. And this, I think, is a serious problem. So there's quite a different story about a rabbi with a student, where the student says to the rabbi, Rabbi, when do we know when the darkness, the night ends and the dawn breaks? Is it when we can tell the difference between a wolf and a dog? No. And nor, says the rabbi, when we can tell the difference between a pear tree and an apple tree. And the rabbi says we can tell when we can look at the person in front of us, at that person's face, and see neither black nor white, but that person is a brother or a sister. And until that time, we will continue to walk in the darkness. So unless you have this mindset, I think, it's hard to deal with the issue. Now, the issue historically, most Americans come in the middle of the story. And they have to go back and realize that at the turn of the century, Palestinian Muslims and Christians were about 95% of the population. And they were promised by the British and the French and Woodrow Wilson, through his 14 points, that they would have self-determination. They helped throw the Turks out. And suddenly they found themselves saddled through the League of Nations with British and French mandates in the Middle East. And the British mandate, which incorporated the Balfour Declaration, the League of Nations gave the British a mandate over Palestine. The Balfour Declaration consisted of the British government telling the World Zionist Organization that Her Majesty's government looks with pleasure or supports the idea of a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine, Jewish national home, provided it didn't infringe on the civil and religious rights of Palestinians.